Welcome to What Women Bring, a closer look. Today, I had a very informative conversation with Kenni Cummings, What Women Bring Community Honoree 2024 for eliminating racism. This purpose-driven leader talks candidly about her ancestral calling to justice work, the village that supports and keeps her accountable, and how she takes time for herself to keep up the fight. Enjoy. Welcome, Kenni Cummings. Thank you for joining me. You are our community empowering women. Eliminating racism honoree. You do some very, very important work, very aligned with what we do. So I have been wanting to sit down and talk with you since the event. So this is special for me. Yeah. So I'm going to jump into the fact that you are a PK and the daughter of a social worker. So this work that you do is kind of like in your DNA, right? So talk about like what that life was like growing up as a preacher's kid and the daughter of a social worker, because you just had to do what you had to do.
Service is the rent we pay for a living.
I love that quote.
A regular mantra. I was like, oh, that's not my parents' words. Okay, cool. I think what's important for me, that when I'm talking to people about this dynamic that I grew up in, is that my parents, it was in them. Mm-hmm. So as much as I got this reality of who I am from them, the real originator is Melvina Owens, as my mom's mother, who told my dad, in order to date my mother, you have to go back to church.
Oh, okay.
And so from church became a call to ministry.
Wow.
Which my mom was not excited about, but is grateful for. We grew up doing community service, showing up for our extended family. My mom often dropped a lot of what she was doing to show up for my extended family who lived close and far away. Mm-hmm. And so I just started to realize, okay, this is what we do. This is how we figure it out. I thought I was going to be a teacher, though. I didn't think I was going to be a community organizer or doing stuff in advocacy. I was like, oh, I'll teach. Kids are great. And now I get to deal with everybody from kids to elders.
Yes. Well, we definitely have that kind of in your DNA in common, because my father, civil rights, mother, civil rights, grandparents. My grandmother, Wilhelmina McGee, had me passing out voter registration flyers at 8, and then driving people to, when I turned 16, she was like, oh, good. Now you can take your grandfather's truck and pick up the rest of the people that I can't pick up. So it's just what you do.
It's what you do. And I think my connection to housing is really specific because my dad's a United Methodist preacher, and part of the gift of that calling is that they often provide a housing allowance or a parsonage. And so I didn't understand as a child that I had guaranteed housing. But that created a lot of, my parents were stressed about a lot of things, but they weren't ever worried about where we were going to lay our head. Yeah. And that changed fundamentally, how I grew up in comparison to my cousins, to friends. That stability created a stability that I'm able to give to other human beings, whether I'm stable or not.
Right.
Because there's some stuff that literally happened in my nervous system that's very different when you get to know exactly where you're going to lay your head.
That's absolutely true. And I don't think a lot of people recognize that. Yeah. That is something. And I worked with the homeless for 30 years in Georgia. So when you see what that does, when people are evicted, when their things are on the street, when they don't know where they're going to lay their head, sleep, where they're going to eat, if they get a meal, where they're going to eat it at. Yeah. It does do something different to you.
It changes things.
That's amazing. Yeah. So we're lucky to have you.
Yeah.
So you talked about the ancestry calling and the commitment of your life. So this goes, for you, it goes even deeper than just your parents.
Oh, yeah.
You feel this whole, and you talked even on stage about living in a community like Charleston where your ancestors built, but yet there are people that, again, are suffering through this lack of housing.
Yeah. There's a woman named Mary Hooks out of Atlanta. She's an organizer, and she talks about the mandate. The mandate of our people of this time is to avenge the suffering of the ancestors, to earn the respect of future generations. Cool. That's on me. And so I feel it when I walk on the streets of Charleston.
Yeah.
I feel it even here in this Naval Yard reality, and feel we deserve a different reality. Like our children deserve stability.
Yeah.
My sister is a master's in her at Howard for her master's degree in social work because she was given a deep degree of stability.
Right.
My brother gets to show up in the world as a radio personality and uplift people's work and art because he was given stability. And like I can only imagine what can come out of Charleston and in South Carolina when children are like given stability. Eviction like disrupts a child's understanding of what is.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, most of like the country's teachers, the state don't even understand what it is. So they can't even show up like in the gap. So like I feel like I feel the ancestors' presence. I feel the presence of like the nurses that went on strike here, the enslaved people that went on strike, rebellions, the soldiers who like found a way to memorialize. I feel like I get to do all that in the work at the tenant union that I'm building.
Wonderful. Yeah, let's talk about your work. How long have you been doing housing justice work?
I've been doing that for about the last 3 years. So we are about 5 years old. So I was around when what was the South Carolina Housing Justice Network was getting started in the midst of COVID and hopping on calls and trying to figure out how we're going to keep people housed and how the people find out about the moratorium. But I had my own housing insecurity, newly married, and like cost of rent went up and landlord decided to sell a property. And so that created like a scramble for me and my husband of like, where do we go?
Right.
Went to another property. That property also, the landlord decided that they were going to sell.
Oh.
And so I decided, let me take some time, get settled. And once I got settled, I came back and a friend was working at the organization and was like, I need your help. And before I knew it, I was going to meetings. I was coaching them. Oh, this is how you do this. To like going to meetings, to advising the board, to supervising another staff person. And before I knew it, I was on staff myself.
Right. You just worked your way into a job.
I tell people like, kind of like an accidental ED. Like,
yes. But much needed. And I really just love how connected you are to the work, like deeply. This isn't certainly not a job for you. This is the calling that you feel on your life.
Yeah.
So in some way you will always do this.
In some way I will always do this.
Yeah.
And like I tell people like my goal is to work myself out of like my current job. Like there are lots of ways that people approach housing justice. I approach it from an orientation of community organizing, which is primary work is to build leaders.
Yes.
Like, what do we want to see different? And then my goal is to like, okay, you want to see that differently? Let me help you in every way that I can to develop you so that we can see that different and you can lead it.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, I'd love to be like, there are leaders that I help develop that take this role and I move on, but I'll always be in the midst of this, whether that was like the mutual aid work I was doing before, helping to raise funds so that people can stay in their homes.
Yeah.
Or now the community organizing work of making sure people know their rights and that we're building out more rights for tenants.
Awesome. Well, we know legislatively, we know political climate. We even since the event, it's gotten more so worse. So, what touched me though, what you said was that all the work that you did, you felt like you failed. Like you take this work very personal. And so you felt like because the legislation that you were fighting so hard for didn't get passed, and it was such important legislation. So tell me how you wear that weight and still keep fighting. Like that's a heavy crown to carry.
Yeah. I did feel a lot of personal failure, still do, even when I think about the ground that we have to cover in South Carolina. I think there are a couple of things that I'm working through. One is like, I'm trying to get into a space of like that the work that I do is not about saving people. It's about us uniting to take care of one another.
Yeah.
And so that orientation helps a lot because then it's like, it's not that I failed, because if my leaders come to me and say that they failed. In fact, I had leaders come to me this past week because we had a great meeting, but there was, behind the scenes, there'll be a little here and there. They're like, oh, I failed. I'm like, you didn't fail, you had a mistake.
Yeah.
We had some tension, whatever. So I'm working on like reorienting myself to this work so that it is a collective thing that we're holding together and doing that for my folks too, because that failure reality will also put you into a shutdown.
Yes.
It'll isolate you. It'll pull you away. Two, I'm also trying to move into a space of like a commitment to my care and like in a way that like I get to pour out. Like out of myself and instead of like wring myself out. Like, how do I like show up into spaces as filled as I can, whether that's going to therapy or taking time off or connecting with other folks that are doing the work in a different way. And then I'm like, when I was in seminary and growing up with a preacher's father, my dad and other seminary teachers would say like the work that I do is like life and death. And so I'm very serious with people that like this work that we do is like really about like, there's some of us that have not been doing work, and that's part of the reason we're in the current political climate that we're in. And so this work that we do now is really important. We don't want worse. We don't want the continuation of what's happening. And like that, setting myself to be level and reminding myself just the overall importance keeps me grounded, but also allows me to like be in accountability with other people in my community who can say, Kenni, you've been working too many days in a row. Yes. You look tired. And for me not to take that as an assault, but also as a care and to slow down and to reorient. So like, connecting with my people, reminding myself this is a collective work. And then also staying like sharp so that when I show up into spaces, I'm giving the best I can.
That's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit more about how you renew yourself. So you kind of talk through it, but I want you to give the people some real nuggets on how you keep yourself refreshed and renewed so that you can show up your best self.
Yeah, definitely a work in progress around this, but a couple practices. I try to take myself to the ocean because it's the places I can feel like the freest and most connected. Like the water, something about the connection of the water here that I know touches back to the land that my people came from is really important. I also am a chronically ill human being. And so I try to be really honest with other people in my life around like what that means and with my team around what that means and what it looks like. And then it also means like I take joy and celebration really serious. So for example, my birthday is coming up and it's in August, and it's really easy for me to put it off. And there's so many other transitions happening in my life right now, but I'm hosting a barbecue with all of the folks I do work with communally, but also friends. So it'll be this really big mixing and melting pot. And I've made line dancing a requirement. It's like you can't get a plate unless you have danced. And not because I think people should be brought out of I honor phobias and fear and things of that nature. But I also know that dancing, singing, music, culture are some of the only things that are going to keep us in the midst of all of the world. So making time to go see the movie Sinners, making time to connect with my friends who are going to see Cowboy Carter, making sure I'm living beyond just the work.
Yeah. Awesome. Those are some good nuggets.
Yeah.
And I relate to the ocean part. For me, it's the vastness of it. I feel so small, I could be like a grain of sand. And when I stand there and I'm like, if he could do this, he could take care of whatever this is that brought me to the ocean. Yeah, he could take care of that. So talk about your village. I have a sneaking suspicion that your village is very eclectic.
Yes, yes. I'll start with the union that I'm building. So we were originally South Carolina Housing Justice Network, and now we're SC Tenant Union. And I think people have lots of ideas or visions about what that means or what it looks like, but we often use the language of a political home. And in the midst of my divorce, these are the people that were come lay your head here. Yeah. And so those people are everything from a mama of four to a queer couple who were come be with us and our dogs and our sibling. And I've got Black elders who go to church every Sunday and are on the usher board. And I have young people who are questioning their identity and have a new pronoun every other week, who all check in on me and want to see me win. But I'm also fortunate to have incredible friends, a slew of Black women and femmes who show up in lots of different ways in the world, but are very clear about me. Yeah. And what I mean to the world and what I'm worthy of. And sometimes it's really hard for me to be in a relationship with them because there is a level of accountability and honesty that you sometimes, I was just calling you to kiki. Right. I was calling you to laugh. And we can laugh, but they're also going to be like, and so when are you going to finish the grant report? Or when are you going to ask for the thing that you need? Or be really honest with people about where you are? Or is that what you want? So those folks, I also have an extended family that lives in Augusta, Georgia, who also don't play about me and are clear about who I am. I'm a person who uses they, them pronouns. And like they have like stumbled and bumbled through that, but also have gotten real clear about I want to be in your life.
Yes.
And I want to show up for you. And also with other work that I do in the world around legislation and other things, like just never quite know who's going to be up on my social media profile, because I really do believe like we need one another. Like the only way we're going to get through any of this is like to be an actual community and to know one another. So it's been funny to work with people, and they're like, well, let's build a plan around this. I'm like, that's great. Who are you? Tell me about your grandchildren. Tell me about what you like to do, because I think relationship is the center of like how we get to power.
Yes. I love the whole concept of may not understand the pronoun issues, but I want to be in your life.
Yeah.
And so it's about that relationship.
Yeah.
And people are struggling to understand.
Baby, deep struggle. But what I've learned is like, I had to have a really hard conversation with like some of my favorite family members just about like, I don't think you're showing up in the way that I think like I'm worthy of. And it was really it was a really hard conversation. And what's been really beautiful is to see like other people in my family be like, oh, they're trying so hard, or hear them like, I've been using Kenni as a name, like the name I usually want to be called by. And they're figuring it out. I'm getting text messages with Kenni, and like folks are just figuring it out. But I also gave my people the opportunity to try to figure it out. And I also like create space for myself around like some places I go, people are not going to understand. And that's fine. Like, cause I know who I am and I'm clear,
Right.
but can I give some folks the opportunity or the space to do that?
Yeah.
And like, we can only get to a space of like eliminating racism and all these other isms until we like really actually have an honest conversation about who we are and are clear about it, but then also create space to have conversations with people in spaces that are, I don't want a 5-year-old explaining racism to like someone, a sullen Klansman, you know?
Right.
But I do think that there are spaces in all of our lives where we can create just a little bit of space for folks to learn.
Yeah. How did you get this comfortable in your skin? Did this is just how you showed up, or was this like a work in progress? Because you seem really comfortable and confident in who you are, whether or not people understand that or not.
Yeah, I think it's just been an integration process. I grew up with a preacher and a social worker who were very clear. I came home, I was being teased in school. I thought my parents are really going to go up to that school and tell them people. And my dad was like, come memorize this poem, me. I guess, like, but I remember those lyrics about like the beauty of Black skin.
Yeah.
Because my dad was like, yeah, we can talk to people about how they treat you and treat other people in the classroom. And I need you to be really clear that no matter what anyone says, this is who you are.
Yeah.
When I told my dad about gender and my sexuality stuff around my ministry and call, he was really clear, like, I might not understand this piece. People in the world are going to say this. And I know that you're called. Like, I know that you're competent. And so those things are really helpful. And then I think spending time by yourself helps you really connect with what it is. And like, I think there are lots of ways that in some ways people don't think I make sense. Like, you use they, them pronouns, but you hang out with little church ladies. And I'm like, yeah, because I grew up in the church. Like, I speak their language, whatever, but also like my commitment to the world is pure. And they know that.
Yeah.
And they know that if they call me, I'm going to show up. And if I can't show up, there's a really good reason. And so like, slowly working with other folks, but also like making sure I'm taking time for myself and being really clear about who I am and do I feel comfortable and what do I want?
Absolutely. That taking time for yourself is woven throughout this whole conversation. I think that's important for people. You have to, well, they say on the airplane, put the mask on yourself first, because if you ain't no good, you can't help nobody else.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So now let's just get to some fun stuff. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
You like that morning?
I love the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the morning. It's quiet. there's beauty, and like it's when I do my best thinking.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm not that, but I understand those people that are. I'm definitely sunset. What you talked about that you thought you would be a teacher. When you were younger, I know I thought I was going to be a lot of things. I think I probably was going to be like 15 things by the time I got to high school. But what do you remember most about wanting to be when you grow up? You said, I'm going to be a...
Yeah, I think I really wanted to be a teacher because although my dad's primary vocation is a pastor and though my mom's primary vocation is social work, they both have taught.
Yeah.
And I see the orientation and the thing that happens when like a teacher believes in you. Mm-hmm. And I think if you learn how to learn, you're set up for the rest of your life. Yeah. And so those were big things. I also really love children, and teaching was like immediate access to them. And I started babysitting super early. Like I was 9. People were asking me to babysit their children when I was 9. And my mom would come and sit in the other room. And
and you would
try to do what I could do with
Now, did you play
kids.
School? With
I played
your
school,
stuffed animals and your kids you babysat?
I played school and church.
Yes.
And here I am.
Yes.
And that's like, and it's funny because if someone asks me what I do for a living, I tell them I'm a community organizer and I have the privilege of serving as an executive director. But the truth is I'm just a teacher. Like I teach people what community organizing is. I remind people that they already know how to do a lot of things. They just have different names.
Yeah.
And like, it's incredible to watch like the leadership development arc of so many of folks that I've been working with in the last 3 years.
Nice. What's a place that you've always dreamed of traveling to, and why?
Yeah, I gotta get to Kenya.
Yeah.
I gotta get to Kenya. I'm named after my father, so his name is Kenneth. And although like my primary name that I like to be called now is Kenny, I will always be Kenya. Yes. It is a beautiful name, and I got to go to Ethiopia almost a decade ago, and it was so beautiful. And every Kenyan human being I've ever met, I'm just like, okay, I gotta get there. I think like Africa and all of its many different countries like held so much beautiful heritage and history, and Kenya and Ethiopia in particular hold a really beautiful story around like resilience and like early stories of the Bible and other things of that nature that just make me be like, I gotta get there.
Nice. You'll get there. I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we close, I want to make sure that people know how to find you, your organization, however, on social media. So give us your social media handles.
Yeah. So I am Kenni Seeks Joy under my personal Instagram, and our organizational Instagram is SC Tenant Union.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll make sure that people know how to find you.
Yes, come find us.
Definitely. Well, thank you. This has been so delightful. I knew it would be, but it's been so delightful. And I'm so glad you had an opportunity to come and sit and chat with me and keep up with us.
No, for sure. I'm excited about this upcoming event.
Yes.
I'm going to get my ticket and make sure I come out. And then I'm just like so grateful for y'all's continued work. I think that we're living in a moment where people can hang up the work that they've been doing, and to see your organization amongst so many others still continuing to like shoulder forth is good medicine for us. It's good medicine.
I love that. Your quotes are amazing to me. I love that. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.